After that night, nothing felt the same. I tried to go back to normal, to pretend that what I felt for Daniel was just a phase, a silly crush that would fade if I ignored it long enough. But ignoring it didn't make it go away. If anything, it grew stronger. Every time I was at Abby's house, my heart reacted to him before my brain could catch up. The sound of his voice, the way his presence filled a room, the small details, no one else seemed to notice. All of it pulled me in deeper. And every time I caught myself staring or smiling too much when he spoke, the guilt came crushing down again. The more I tried to suppress my feelings, the harder it became. It was in the little things. When Abby and I were watching movies and he'd pass by the living room, I'd feel my pulse quicken. When he asked if I wanted coffee in the morning, I'd wonder if he offered because he wanted to, or simply out of politeness. When our eyes met across the dinner table, I wondered if he felt the same unspoken connection, or if it was just me projecting what I wanted to believe. One evening, I was sitting at the dining table, finishing homework. Abby was upstairs on a call with her cousin. Daniel walked in, holding a stack of mail. He set it down, glanced at me, and asked, "Studying hard?" I smiled faintly. "Trying to." He sat across from me, not too close, but close enough that I felt his presence. "You always seem so focused," he said. "I don't think I was half as disciplined at your age." I laughed softly. "Trust me, I'm faking it half the time." His smile lingered as he looked at me, and for a brief moment, silence filled the space between us, silence that felt charged, alive. Then Abby's voice echoed from upstairs, and the moment dissolved. But these moments started piling up. Each one left me questioning whether I was imagining it all or if he was deliberately holding back. And the more time passed, the harder it became to convince myself I was alone in this. The turning point came late one Friday night. Abby had invited me for a sleepover, something we did often. We spent hours laughing, scrolling through social media, talking about boys from school. But the entire time, my thoughts kept drifting, not to boys our age, but to him. When Abby finally fell asleep, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I could hear faint sounds from downstairs, the low hum of the television. He was still awake. My heart pounded as I debated whether to go downstairs. Part of me knew it was wrong, that I should stay in bed. But curiosity longing won. I tiptoed down the stairs, telling myself I just wanted water. Daniel was on the couch, watching an old movie. He looked surprised when he saw me, but not upset. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. I shook my head. "No." He gestured toward the couch. "Want to join me?" I hesitated only for a second before sitting down, keeping a careful distance. We watched in silence at first. Then we started talking. About school, about life, about movies we liked. The kind of easy, flowing conversation that made time disappear. But under the surface, something else was happening. Every glance, every smile, every brush of his voice against my ears, it all felt like more than it should. And when our eyes met in the glow of the screen, I knew he felt it too. That was the night everything shifted. We didn't touch. We didn't cross any obvious lines. But something unspoken passed between us, something undeniable. And I knew, in that moment, we couldn't keep pretending forever. After that night on the couch, I couldn't look at Daniel the same way. It wasn't just me imagining anymore. I was sure of it. Something had passed between us. Something silent, but powerful. The problem was, once you cross that invisible line, even if only in your mind, you can't go back. Every glance carried weight. Every word felt layered. Every silence became charged with things left unsaid. And I couldn't pretend it wasn't happening. The very next morning, I caught myself stealing glances at him over breakfast. He looked tired, but calm, sipping his coffee as Abby talked about our plans for the day. Every time he lifted his mug, my eyes followed, as though I had no control over them. At one point, he glanced up and caught me looking. For a split second, we just stared at each other. Then Abby laughed at something on her phone, breaking the spell. I forced myself to laugh along, though I hadn't even heard the joke. My heart was pounding, and guilt settled over me like a storm cloud. The guilt only grew worse when I looked at Abby. She was my best friend, my sister in every way but blood. We had shared secrets, heartbreaks, dreams for the future. And here I was, harboring feelings for the one person in her life who was completely off limits. Sometimes I caught myself wondering, what would happen if she ever found out? The thought alone was enough to make me sick. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't turn it off. It was like living in two worlds. In one world, I was Abby's best friend, the loyal companion, the one who had her back through everything. In the other world, I was a girl falling deeper and deeper for her father, trapped in a secret no one could know. Balancing those two versions of myself was exhausting. A few days later, I almost slipped. Abby and I were in the kitchen making sandwiches, music playing from her phone. Daniel came in from work, loosened his tie, and opened the fridge. "Hey, girls," he said, his voice casual. "Hi, Dad," Abby replied without looking up. I glanced at him, just for a second longer than I should have. His eyes met mine, and there it was again, that unspoken current between us. It lasted only a moment, but Abby turned just in time to catch me looking. "What?" she asked, her tone light, curious. "Nothing," I said quickly, fumbling with the bread. "Just zoned out." She shrugged and went back to spreading mayonnaise. But my hands were shaking. Later that night, lying in bed next to Abby as she scrolled through her phone, I couldn't stop replaying that moment in my head. She hadn't noticed. She hadn't suspected anything. But what if she had? How long before someone else did? The pressure inside me built day by day. There was another moment, a week later, that nearly broke me. Abby had gone to the store, leaving me at the house. I was curled up on the couch, reading. Daniel came in, holding a folder of work papers. "Quiet afternoon?" he asked, smiling faintly. "Yeah," I said, closing my book. "Just killing time." He sat down across from me, setting the folder aside. Sometimes I wish I had more of that time to just sit and do nothing. I smiled, but my heart was already racing. We started talking, like we always did, easy, natural, effortless. Then, without meaning to, my knee brushed against his. I froze. He didn't move. The touch lingered, light but electric, sending a shiver up my spine. And in that moment, I realized how close we really were to being discovered. If Abby had walked in right then, what would she have seen? To people sitting too close, to people sharing a silence too deep to be casual, to people with something to hide. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. Was this love, or was it just temptation? Maybe I was fooling myself into thinking it was deeper than it really was. Maybe I just wanted it to be love, because calling it that made it feel less wrong. But then I remembered the way he listened when I talked, the way his eyes softened when they met mine, the way he seemed to open up with me in ways he didn't with anyone else. And I knew it wasn't just temptation, it was real, and it was dangerous. It started with small slips, nothing drastic, nothing that anyone else could notice at first glance. But when you're on edge, watching every word, every gesture, even the tiniest movement can feel monumental. I remember the day clearly. Abby had friends over for a study session. I was helping them with some homework, while Daniel fixed a lamp in the corner of the living room. He walked past me, casually, but his hand brushed mine just slightly as he reached for the light switch. It was a small, fleeting touch, but it sent a jolt straight to my chest. I froze, looking away, trying to act normal, but I couldn't. My skin felt electrified, my heart pounding in a way that made it impossible to breathe normally. Later that evening, Abby left for a late shift at work. Daniel and I were alone. It was the first time we had been alone for more than a few minutes in months. "Are you okay?" he asked, genuinely concerned. I tried to smile. "I'm fine, just tired." But he didn't look convinced. "You've seemed distracted lately," he said softly. "Is everything okay at home?" I shook my head, pretending to focus on the floor. "It's nothing." He leaned against the counter, eyes fixed on me. "You know you can talk to me, right?" And that simple sentence, innocent on its own, felt like a key turning in a lock. We talked 4 hours at night, about everything and nothing at all. He shared stories of his younger days, struggles he had never mentioned before, and I found myself opening up too, revealing thoughts I hadn't shared with anyone. Every time our eyes met, every time he laughed at something I said, I felt the impossible, the pull between us growing stronger. It was terrifying, and yet I couldn't stop myself. The tension reached a peak a few days later. Abby was out shopping, and I was waiting in the living room while Daniel organized some old books. I reached for one on a high shelf, and he stepped closer to help me. His hand brushed mine again, but this time, intentionally, I thought. I looked up, and our eyes locked. Time seemed to slow. "Be careful," he said softly, almost a whisper. It was nothing overt, but it was everything. I knew then that hiding it was no longer possible. Every stolen glance, every accidental brush of hands, every word layered with unspoken meaning, there was no turning back. The risk of being discovered made it more intoxicating. Every moment alone felt like walking on the edge of a cliff. That night, I lay awake, heart racing. I couldn't sleep. I replayed the day in my mind again and again, dissecting every interaction, every look. I realized something terrifying. I was no longer afraid of the feelings themselves. I was afraid of what would happen as they were ever revealed. Then came the next incident, the one I could never forget. It was late. I was coming downstairs to grab water when he appeared in the hallway. Neither of us spoke at first, just standing there, too close to ignore the electricity between us. Finally, I whispered, I don't know what to do." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from my face. My entire body froze. "Shh," he said softly. "Everything will be okay." It was the first time he touched me deliberately, and in that moment, I realized the truth I had been denying. We were both feeling it. We couldn't hide it any longer. From that night onward, the tension became almost unbearable. Every time Abby was around, every time someone else was in the house, I had to remind myself to act normal. And every time we were alone, the unspoken connection between us simmered, dangerous and undeniable. I had fallen in love completely, and now I wasn't sure if I wanted to stop. That evening, the air in the house felt heavier than usual. Abby was gone for a late shift, and I knew Daniel was still in the kitchen, probably finishing some paperwork. The thought of being alone with him made my pulse race, my stomach twist in knots I couldn't untangle. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and padded downstairs. He looked up when I entered, his expression calm, but I could feel the tension in the space between us immediately. "Still awake?" he asked. I nodded, clutching my mug of water like a lifeline. "Ya couldn't sleep." He gestured toward the chair across from him. "Sit." I did, careful to keep some distance, but it felt impossible. The air was thick, every second charged with the unspoken words we both knew but didn't say. "Can I ask you something?" I said quietly, my voice trembling slightly. "Anything," he replied. I swallowed hard. "Do you ever think about us? About what this is?" He stayed silent for a long moment, and my heart pounded in my ears. I thought I had imagined the question, but then he leaned back slightly, eyes locked on mine. "Yes," he said simply. The single word hit me harder than anything else could. "Yes," he admitted, and just like that, everything I had been fearing, everything I had been denying, became real. I wanted to ask more, to confess everything swirling inside me, but I was terrified. Terrified of Abby finding out, terrified of the consequences, terrified of how impossible it all was. And yet I couldn't stop. We talked 4 hours that night, quietly, carefully, each word measured, yet dripping with tension. He told me about his loneliness, the pressures of life, the responsibilities that weighed on him, and I confessed my own fears, my confusion, my longing for someone who could see me truly. It wasn't just flirtation. It wasn't just attraction. It was a deep, undeniable connection that neither of us could ignore. At one point, he reached out, almost accidentally, brushing his hand against mine. I didn't pull away. "I shouldn't be doing this," he murmured. "I know," I whispered, "but I can't stop feeling this." His eyes softened, searching mine. "Neither can I." The truth was out, unspoken, but understood. We were in this together, even if it was dangerous, even if it was forbidden. Then came the hardest part, the fear. Every time I thought of Abby, my stomach twisted. How could I ever betray her trust? How could I love her father and still call myself her friend? And yet, the more I tried to push him away, the closer we seemed to grow. Every glance, every accidental touch, every shared silence pulled us toward each other. It was intoxicating, terrifying, and completely out of control. By the end of the night, I knew one thing for certain. We couldn't hide it any longer. The feelings were too strong, too real, and too dangerous to ignore. And as I went upstairs to my room, heart racing, I realized the inevitable. Part 3 was coming. The truth would have to come out, and nothing would ever be the same again. If you want to see what happens next, how the truth finally comes out, and what it costs, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Part 3 of the Forbidden Love story is coming soon, and you won't want to miss it.